If you've seen our previous videos on immunity, you know that our immune systems are an incredible thing. But with a little help, they can do even more to protect us. Vaccines are substances we put in our bodies that train our immune systems to fight invaders more successfully. In earlier videos, we've talked about how our immune system forms antibodies and immune memory that allow us to combat pathogens our bodies have seen before. When our bodies encounter a new invader, though, they don't have a pre-existing immunity to it. That's one of the reasons COVID-19 has been so dangerous. SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus that had never infected humans before, so no one had immunity to it already. That's why vaccination is such an important tool for helping us respond to novel threats like COVID-19. Remember baby Pete from our video on adaptive immunity? We watched his immune system build experience and memory over time so that by the time he was an adult, his body could withstand attacks from many different viruses. That happens through natural exposures, but it also happens when we're vaccinated against illnesses. By the time Pete reaches adulthood, he's received vaccines for a whole host of viruses. The only other way for him to develop immunity would have been for him to get infected with all these viruses. That's how it happened for most of human history, and it's a big part of the reason that child mortality rates used to be so much higher than they are today. A century ago, maybe Pete would have been exposed to measles or polio as a baby instead of receiving vaccines for these diseases. Those infections might have killed him or taken away his ability to see, hear, or walk. Instead, Pete had a healthy childhood and survived to adulthood with no ill effects because he grew up in an age where we can give our bodies immunity to these deadly viruses without having to suffer from dangerous and sometimes lethal infections. In short, vaccination allows us to spread immunity without the dangers of deadly diseases. It's also made it possible for us to get rid of diseases entirely. Smallpox killed 2 million people per year as recently as the 1960s. After a global vaccination program in the 60s and 70s, smallpox was eradicated worldwide. This could never have happened without vaccination. All this is to say that we're incredibly fortunate to have multiple approved vaccines to help us in the fight against COVID. Let's talk about these specific vaccines and how they work. Both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have mRNA as their active ingredient. You might have heard mRNA technology is new, so here's a quick overview. mRNA stands for messenger RNA. It's a chemical that our body uses when it's making proteins. Normally, the DNA in your cell's nucleus gets unzipped, and the instructions it contains are transcribed onto molecules of messenger RNA. mRNA is a go-between molecule that carries this code to our cells' ribosomes, where they're used as instructions for making proteins. If your DNA were a cookbook and your ribosomes were a cook, mRNA would be like a photocopy of the recipe your ribosomes needed to make a batch of a specific protein. So what does any of this have to do with vaccines? Recently, scientists have learned how to use this process to create antigens that your body can use to mount an adaptive immune response without being exposed to any virus at all. mRNA vaccines contain snippets of mRNA sealed in a lipid membrane, a little bubble of fat. Once the mRNA enters your cell, your ribosomes use it to make the protein its instructions are for. In this case, the SARS-CoV-2 antigen. Once those antigens have been created, your immune system learns to recognize them just as if it were seeing them because of a viral infection. Check out our adaptive immunity video for a refresher on how your body creates immune memory. So why go to all this trouble? Why not just inject people with the antigen rather than the recipe for making the antigen? Many vaccines do just that. There are some COVID vaccines being developed that contain the spike protein antigen. The advantage of mRNA vaccines is that mRNA is a simple molecule and it's easy to make a lot of it quickly. Purifying entire proteins from viruses is a lot of work, but our bodies can make the proteins just fine if they have the instructions. In a global pandemic where we need a huge supply of vaccines and we need it fast, that's a big advantage. Can you catch COVID-19 from the vaccine? Absolutely not. The spike protein isn't a viral particle, it's just a tiny piece of one, so it can't cause an infection. And what about those mRNA instructions? mRNA breaks down after it's used. It doesn't become part of your body. It does not change your DNA or affect your genes at all. Just like having a photocopy of a book in your hands doesn't change the book on your shelf. The other ingredients in the Moderna and Pfizer COVID vaccines are lipids, acids and acid stabilizers, salts, and sugars. Lipids form the bubbles that mRNA is sealed in. These are fatty molecules that assemble into capsules that contain the mRNA, which allows your body to absorb it without it being damaged. Acids and acid stabilizers are used in the Moderna vaccine to keep it stable after it's produced. The acid used is acetic acid, the same acid that's in vinegar. The stabilizer, tromethamine, is a harmless buffer that balances out the vaccine's pH. Salts make up the formula that these lipid mRNA bubbles are suspended in. The Pfizer vaccine uses phosphate-buffered saline, a solution used in all kinds of liquid medications to keep the vaccine's pH stable. The Moderna vaccine uses sodium acetate, a simple salt that's also found, fun fact, in salt and vinegar potato chips. Sucrose, also known as table sugar, keeps the vaccine from getting sticky when it's in cold storage. That's it. No mercury, no microchips. Vaccination is an incredible tool that has helped humanity survive and flourish. Widespread vaccination for COVID-19 is going to save countless lives, but only if those of us who can get vaccinated do so. Next week, we'll share more about the vaccine approval process and explain how exactly we know these vaccines are safe and effective. We hope you'll join us.